I'm Mark Ellison, and I live in Pine Hollow, a tidy little suburb where every lawn is mowed just so, and the mailboxes gleam like they're polished daily. It's the kind of place where you'd expect peace, but peace is hard to come by when Karen Whitaker's around. She's the HOA president, a woman who struts through our streets like she owns every blade of grass. Most folks call her Karen behind her back, and it fits. She's got a clipboard glued to her hand and a glare that could curdle milk. But this story isn't just about her. It's about my daughter, Sophie, and the garden she loved till Karen tore it apart. Sophie's 11, with curly brown hair and eyes that shine even on her toughest days. She has cerebral palsy, so she uses a wheelchair to get around. Her legs don't work like other kids, but her heart's bigger than this whole neighborhood. After her mom passed 3 years ago, I moved us here for a fresh start. I'm a quiet guy, keep to myself, and most folks don't know I'm the county environmental officer. I enforce laws about land use, wildlife, protected plants, you name it. I don't flash my badge around. All I wanted was a safe place for Sophie to grow up, to feel the sun on her face and smile without worry. That's why her garden meant everything. Sophie's garden started small, just a patch in our front yard. She'd always loved plants, even as a toddler, reaching for flowers with her tiny hands. Her therapist said gardening could help her strengthen her arms, calm her mind. So I built raised beds, high enough for her to reach from her chair, and filled them with soft soil. Sophie picked every seed: sunflowers for joy, lavender for calm, tomatoes because she loved their smell. She'd spend hours out there, her fingers in the dirt, humming softly. It was her sanctuary, her way of feeling strong in a world that often made her feel small. The neighbors loved it. Old Mrs. Delaney from next door would shuffle over with lemonade, saying, "Sophie, you've got a green thumb." Kids would stop by, curious, and Sophie would show them how to plant seeds, her voice bright with pride. Even the grumpiest folks in Pine Hollow softened when they saw her out there, her wheelchair tracks weaving through the grass. Everyone except Karen. From the day we moved in, Karen had it out for us. Maybe it was the wheelchair ramp one built, which she called an eyesore in her first nasty letter. Maybe it was Sophie's laugh, too loud for Karen's perfect world. Whatever it was, Karen's complaints started piling up like storm clouds. She'd march over with her clipboard, barking about unauthorized landscaping or excessive dirt on the sidewalk. I'd nod, keep the peace, and pay her petty fines. I didn't want trouble. Sophie had enough to deal with: doctor visits, therapy, kids at school who didn't always understand. I thought I could handle Karen's nonsense. I was wrong. It was a warm June morning when things went from bad to worse. Sophie was in her garden, planting marigolds, her favorite. I was inside, sipping coffee, watching her through the window. Her smile was brighter than the sun, and I felt a rare moment of calm. Then I saw Karen storming down the street, her face twisted like she'd bitten a lemon. She stopped at our yard, hands on hips, staring at Sophie's garden like it was a crime scene. I stepped outside, sensing trouble. "This is a violation," Karen shouted, pointing at the raised beds. Her voice was loud enough to make Sophie flinch. "Unapproved structures, and these weeds are lowering property values." "They're not weeds," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's Sophie's garden. She needs it for therapy." Karen scoffed, her eyes flicking to Sophie, who was clutching a trowel, her hands trembling. "Therapy. This is a mess. It's coming down, Mark. Today." She scribbled something on her clipboard and stormed off, her heels clicking like gunfire. I knelt beside Sophie, who was staring at her marigolds, tears welling up. "Is she going to take my garden, Dad?" she whispered, her voice so small it broke my heart. "No, sweetheart," I said, brushing dirt from her cheek. "I won't let her." But Karen wasn't bluffing. That afternoon, While I was at work and Sophie was at therapy, Karen struck. I got a call from Mrs. Delaney, her voice shaking. "Mark, you need to come home. Karen. She's destroying Sophie's garden." I sped back, my truck roaring into Pine Hollow. When I pulled up, my stomach dropped. Sophie's garden was gone. The raised beds were smashed, wooden planks splintered, like broken bones. The soil was churned into mud, her sunflowers and lavender ripped out, roots dangling. Marigolds lay crushed in the dirt, their bright petals scattered like confetti after a storm. Karen stood there, smug, holding a shovel, flanked by 2 hired workers with wheelbarrows full of Sophie's plants. "What the hell have you done?" I yelled, jumping out of my truck. Neighbors were peeking from windows, some stepping onto porches, whispering. Karen crossed her arms. "I warned you, Mark. This was unapproved." "I'm cleaning up the neighborhood." That was my daughter's garden, I shouted, my voice raw. "She's disabled, Karen. This was her therapy." She rolled her eyes. "Don't play the pity card. Rules are rules." She turned to the workers. "Finish up. Dump this mess." I wanted to grab that shovel and smash her clipboard to pieces, but I saw Mrs. Delaney watching, her hands clasped tight. I saw kids peering from across the street, scared. I couldn't lose it. Not yet. I took a deep breath, my fists clenched, and said, "You'll regret this." Karen laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "Take it up with the HOA, Mark. Good luck." She walked off, leaving Sophie's garden in ruins. When Sophie came home, I was still trying to salvage what I could, handfuls of soil, a few broken stems. She saw the wreckage and froze, her eyes wide with shock. Then she started to cry, deep, shuddering sobs that tore through me. I scooped her up, wheelchair and all, and held her tight. "I'm so sorry, Soph," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I'll fix this, I promise." That night, I sat at the kitchen table, Sophie asleep in her room, her pillow damp with tears. My coffee was cold, but my anger was burning. Karen had crossed a line, and I wasn't just a dad anymore. I was the county environmental officer, and I knew something Karen didn't. Sophie's garden wasn't just any patch of dirt. It was part of a protected community program I'd helped design, one that encouraged therapeutic gardening on private lots. Every plant, every bed was registered under county law. Karen hadn't just destroyed Sophie's sanctuary, she'd broken about a dozen regulations. I had the paperwork to prove it. The next morning, I started digging. Not in the dirt, but in my files. I pulled records, permits, and emails about Sophie's garden, all stamped with county approval. I found the HOA bylaws, which Karen loved to wave around, and saw she'd violated her own rules by acting without a vote. Then I checked the county code. Destroying protected plants, especially on a registered therapeutic site, was a misdemeanor. Hiring unlicensed workers to do it, another violation. Dumping the debris without a permit, that was a finable offense. Karen thought she was untouchable, but she'd just handed me a legal sledgehammer. I called a friend at the sheriff's office, Deputy Ramirez, and asked him to look into the workers Karen hired. Turns out they weren't licensed contractors, just guys she paid cash to wreck my yard. Another strike. I spent the day building my case. Every document a brick in the wall I was about to drop on Karen, but I wasn't just fighting for Sophie's garden. I was fighting for her smile, her strength, the light in her eyes that Karen tried to snuff out. A week later, the HOA held its monthly meeting in the community center, a stuffy room with folding chairs and a flickering projector. Karen sat at the front, smirking like she'd already won. Neighbors filled the seats, some curious, some annoyed. Mrs. Delaney was there, clutching a thermos, her eyes fierce. I walked in, not as Mark the quiet dad, but as Mark Ellison, county environmental. "Officer?" I wore my county badge clipped to my belt, a stack of papers in one hand, a USB drive in the other. Karen started the meeting, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Let's address the landscaping issue on Elm Street," she said, glancing at me. "Some residents ignored our rules, and I took action to maintain our standards." I stood up, my boots heavy on the floor. "You mean you destroyed my daughter's therapy garden?" I said, my voice calm but sharp. The room went quiet. Karen's smirk faltered. "This isn't the place he started," but I cut her off. "It's exactly the place." I handed the HOA board a nervous trio of Karen's lackeys my stack of papers. Sophie's garden was part of a county-protected program. Every bed, every plant was registered. "You destroyed it without permission, Karen. That's a misdemeanor under county law," the crowd murmured. Karen's face turned red. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. It was a mess. I plugged my USB into the projector and played a video Mrs. Delaney had recorded on her phone. It showed Karen and her workers smashing the beds, uprooting plants, laughing as they tossed sunflowers into a wheelbarrow. Sophie's marigolds hit the dirt, and the room gasped. A woman in the back whispered, "That's awful." I turned to the board. Karen also violated HOA bylaws. No vote was taken to destroy my property. She hired unlicensed workers, dumped debris illegally, and targeted a disabled child's therapy space. I've filed a formal complaint with the county, and the sheriff's office is investigating. Karen jumped up, her clipboard clattering to the floor. "This is a witch hunt," she yelled. "You're making this personal." "It is personal," I said, my voice low, every word heavy. "You hurt my daughter. You made her cry. And you thought you'd get away with it?" The room erupted. Neighbors stood, shouting at Karen. "You went too far," yelled Mr. Patel, who'd once gotten a fine for his kid's bike. "She's a bully," called a woman near the back. Mrs. Delaney banged her thermos on her chair, chanting, "Step down." The board looked like they wanted to crawl under the table. I held up a hand, and the room quieted. "I'm not done," I said. "As county environmental officer, I'm issuing citations for every violation. Karen, you're looking at thousands in fines. And the county's pressing charges for destruction of protected property." Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her face went white, her hands shaking. The board whispered frantically. Then the chairman, a sweaty guy named Ted, stood. "We will vote to remove Karen as president," he stammered. The crowd cheered. Karen sank into her chair, defeated. I didn't smile. I just packed my papers and walked out, Mrs. Delaney patting my arm as I passed. "For Sophie," she whispered. I nodded. This wasn't over yet. The legal hammer fell hard. Karen was charged with a misdemeanor for destroying protected property and faced hefty fines, $5,000 to the county, plus $2,000 to replace Sophie's garden. The sheriff's office fined her for hiring unlicensed workers. And the HOA, desperate to save face, banned her from ever holding office again. She tried to fight it, hiring a cheap lawyer who fumbled in court. I testified, badge on, voice steady, laying out every detail. The judge wasn't kind. "You targeted a disabled child," he said, his eyes hard. "You're lucky it's not. Worse, Karen didn't go to jail, but she might as well have. Her reputation was ash. Neighbors shunned her, and her house went up for sale a month later. She couldn't look me in the eye when she moved out, her car packed with boxers, a case, clipboard nowhere in sight. For Sophie, the real healing took time. The fines paid for new raised beds, stronger than before, and I planted every seed with her, her hands guiding mine. The neighbors helped Mrs. Delaney brought marigold seedlings. Kids painted the beds with bright colors, and Mr. Patel built a little trellis for climbing vines. Sophie's garden bloomed again, bigger, brighter, a testament to her strength. One evening, as the sun set, Sophie sat in her wheelchair, a sunflower tucked behind her ear. She looked at me, her eyes soft but fierce. "Dad, we did it," she said, her voice steady now. I knelt beside her, my heart full. "Yeah, Soph," I said, squeezing her hand. "We did." Pine Hollow wasn't perfect, but it was ours again. The HOA eased up, the kids played freely, and Sophie's garden became a neighborhood treasure. Every bloom was a victory, every petal a promise that no one, not Karen, not anyone would dim my daughter's light again.